guys! So welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome to my channel. I do all sorts of lifestyle, fashion, but mostly mental health because that is what I'm passionate about and it's what I've been through. So today we have another sort of story time-esque video. I am going to be talking to you guys about my experience taking antidepressants. And I know a lot of you guys frequently ask me about my experience and all of that, so I figured I would just throw it into one big video, answer any questions if you guys have any. More importantly, to kind of educate anybody who is afraid to take them and doesn't know much about them, because yeah, that's why we're here. I have the whole day off today because I haven't gotten a job yet, so that's fun. I actually have like a personal training session today with my personal trainer because I'm trying to get fit for the wedding. I'm not wearing my ring. Hold on. Yikes. She there. So I feel like the first thing that I should do is kind of tell you my story with antidepressants, because that's a big part of it, and then I'll go into answering all of the questions that you guys asked me on my Instagram, and then we'll just kind of roll with it. So I was seeing a therapist in my hometown. It was cool. Anyways, so right after my relationship anxiety and relationship OCD kind of popped up, I was going into my sessions weekly and talking about this whole thing with Arthur, and I was like, do I love him? I don't know if I love him. I don't know if I want to be with him. And it just, like, every single week I was like, but how do I know? Like, but how am I supposed to know? Like, how do I know if this is right? I just have this weird urge. You know, if you have any more questions about my ROC video, I'll be sure to link that. I remember this was one of the sessions that Arthur had actually driven me to. Normally I drive myself or walk because it was probably like 4 blocks away from my house, which was kind of nice to like go on a little, you know, walk before and after my sessions. But this is one of the sessions that Arthur happened to drive me to, probably because we were out and about and we were, you know, running errands or something. I remember it's like, this is probably one of the worst sessions I ever had because it was so scary. But I remember her saying, it sounds like you're really stuck on this obsession, is what she said. And I was just like, obsession? No, I'm just like have this thought in my head and it won't go away. And I was very much so in denial that I was struggling as bad as I actually was. She said, it sounds like you're dealing with some like OCD thought patterns or whatever. And when she said that, to say that I freaked out was like an understatement. I just sat in that little couch and I was just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, and I could feel my eyes like welling up with tears. She was just like, why are you crying? Like, why are you upset? And I just told her that I was really afraid that by being diagnosed with OCD that eventually I was going to end up having to flick all my light switches 5 or 6 times, and I was going to have to count everything and wash my hands obsessively. All these like total just not understanding what OCD was. She essentially, at the end of my session, she told me, she said, I think you might want to look into possibly taking a medication. I think you could really benefit from taking an SSRI. And it was literally just like a blur after that. I remember being like, okay, and then I like went into the car that Arthur is obviously picking me up, and I just like sobbed hysterically, and he was just like, what, like, speak, like, why are you freaking out? And I was just like, I have to take medication, I'm crazy, you know, whatever. But here's the deal, my biggest fear with medication was that I was going to be taking something that I would get addicted to and I would have to be on for the rest of my life. It's a strange fear of mine, but I've obviously watched a lot of movies in my life, and I was afraid that I was going to be one of those people that was like digging through someone else's medicine cabinet looking for some kind of medication because like I needed like a fix or something. That was like my biggest fear. It took a couple sessions of kind of chatting with her of like what that actually meant, and you know, Arthur also helped me with this, just kind of like getting the truth back into my head, because right now I was full of just like what ifs. I don't want to be like this, and you know, just having to hear someone tell me like what is actually going to happen and like the different kinds of medications, because not all of them are super addictive, which I think is very important if you don't know that. But essentially, so I started taking medication. I had to literally probably have 6 or 7 different sessions with my actual like physician. I had to go through my regular doctor, a regular appointment saying, hey, I'm dealing with this, I need to take medicine. Then I had to set up an interview with their in-house like therapist, counselor. And then after that, I had to set up an appointment with their in-house psychiatrist, which was the most nerve-wracking thing, because I essentially had to sit there and tell this psychiatrist all of what I was dealing with to almost convince her enough that I needed medication. So it was almost like a job interview, and it was very stressful because I was like, I need to prove to her that I need this. And obviously that's not really how it works, but that's how it felt. And so after I left there, I was waiting for a phone call from her confirming that they wanted to prescribe me something. Later that day I got a phone call saying, hey, we're gonna subscribe you. I'm pretty sure that word is prescribe, not subscribe. We'll just go with it. Zoloft. And I was like, okay, I've heard that word before, like I hope that's not one of the like addictive ones. I asked my mom, and my mom was like, oh, that's the one I took. So I was like, oh, my mom's not a drug addict, she's cool, like this might be okay. So I remember picking up my medication, and I told myself, I'm not gonna take it, I'm just gonna have it, so that way if I get really, really bad, then I'll take it, but like not yet. And I just basically held on to this bottle for like a week or something. I think that was how long it ended up taking. But to the point where I was like, you know what, this is stupid, I have this medication, I'm going to take it, and if I don't like it, I'm gonna stop. So essentially I was just like, why did I go through all of these hoops to get a medication that I'm not even going to take? It seemed kind of stupid. Originally they started me out on I think 25 milligrams, which is pretty low. So yeah, I started off with 25 milligrams, and I started taking it like in the middle of the day. She said take it around like 3 p.m. So I waited around all day, I stared at my clock, and I was like, it's almost 3 p.m. And then 3 p.m. hit, I took the pill, and everything was fine. So they mentioned that the first couple side effects you get when taking Zoloft can be like an upset stomach, you might be nauseous, you might have dry mouth, all these kind of like mild symptoms. But you also have to be really careful and watch out for increased depression, because it actually can make it worse, as crazy as that is, if it's not the right medication for you. So the symptoms that I had in the first, I think, 2 weeks of taking it, I had dry mouth like crazy, which I honestly didn't mind, and I kind of miss having that because it made me drink so much water, which made me like feel very good physically because I was drinking like a crap ton of water. So yeah, that was nice. I think I was a little bit nauseous, but it wasn't anything that like got in the way of my everyday life. It was just like, bleh, I'm kind of like, I don't feel like eating, you know, whatever. But it went away pretty quickly. And then about, I think a month later, I was still really struggling with my anxiety and my obsessive thinking, and I was like, I think I might need to go up in my dosage. So I like wrote my doctor, and I was like, hey, like, still not feeling great. And she's like, okay, we'll just up your dose, so go ahead and take 2 of the little 25 milligram pills. I was like, okay, I can do that. So I took that, and that first week was the week that I felt the most like side effects, I would say. The dry mouth was kind of going away, but I did have increased anxiety, and it was a different kind of anxiety that I was currently experiencing. I would like relate it to the anxiety that I felt when I first started having anxiety, where it's pretty much like all physical. There were not a lot of like mental like obsessions, compulsions, worrying even. Like I wasn't even worrying. I could just feel my heart racing, and just kind of felt shaky. And I was that to me, my therapist and I called that sitting anxiety. So it was essentially like anxiety that kind of pops out of nowhere. It could be like something subconsciously, but essentially it's not caused directly from like a thought that you have, and it's just sitting anxiety. So I'll refer to it as that. So I had a lot of that, and I actually like looked back into my like recent messages with my doctor, and the messages I sent her sounded like crazy. I was so scared. I was like, okay, well, my heart's racing a lot. Like, is this right? Like, I don't think I should take it. Like, I don't think this is right. I need a new medication. And my doctor was so nice. She was just like, well, you're gonna have to be on this medication for at least, you know, a little bit longer to see if it works, because this is like a normal side effect. and you just kind of have to get through this hump and then it will start helping you. I was taking 50 for about a month and a half, and I was doing great on it. After that like initial anxiety kind of bump went away, I was like, I feel really good. And then all of a sudden it got really bad again out of nowhere. So I was just like, what's happening? But at this point I had kind of like realized how the medication works, so I emailed my doctor again and I said, hey, I think we need to go up one more time. And she said, cool, go ahead and do it. I'll write the prescription. So at this point I was on 75, and this was my sweet spot. This is where I was at for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. No side effects at all for the first, I would say 7 months that I was taking, 7 or 8 months. Once I hit the year mark was when I started to see a couple different side effects. So I was very sensitive to alcohol. I could have a glass of wine and I would be like messed up. But also I started gaining weight at this point, and this was a big hurdle for me, and it still is because I haven't lost the weight. So, you know, it was little by little. Eventually my jeans started to get a little tight and I was just like, I need new jeans. And then I kind of had to start buying clothes the next size up, which was really hard for me. I've been an extra small since I can remember. And now I was getting into medium territory, which was just like, oh my gosh, I was so scared. I'm like, I'm getting fat, blah, blah, blah. And when I look back on that time, I was so skinny. I was so tiny. I'm like, wow, Jazzmin, like, you don't even know what was coming. So I am currently not taking Zoloft anymore. It's been, I think I started taking it in August 2 years ago, so it's been almost 2 years. It took me about 2 months to taper off of it, which I was tapering off of 75 milligrams. My psychiatrist told me that we could do it as quickly as a month, but I said, I am terrified and I would like to do this as slowly as possible. And he was just like, okay, well, when do you want to be off your medication? I said, I would love to be off my medication by my wedding in November. And he laughed. He's like, you'll definitely be off it by then. And mostly because I was hoping to get off the medication so I could try and lose some of the weight. Because it's really hard to lose weight when you're on It's really hard to lose weight when you're on antidepressants. It's not impossible, but it's much more difficult. My main reason for coming off the medication, but also mentally I was doing really well. That's the #1 reason I came off my medication. I didn't feel like I needed it anymore. And for me, when the side effects become more of a daily stressor than the actual disorder that I have that the medication is treating, in my opinion, is when it's either time to get off or time to switch. Yeah, so I'm no longer taking it. I think technically right now I'm taking it every other day for the rest of the week, but it's pretty much I'm not taking it. But yeah, and I just realized my battery's about to die, so lit. I'm gonna go through some of your questions now that I have on my Instagram about all of this antidepressant stuff. Did antidepressants also help with OCD? Yes. This was probably the #1 reason I was prescribed the Zoloft, was because it did do well with obsessive thinking, or like statistically it helped a lot of people. I wouldn't say it made the thoughts go away, but I would say in the beginning they were much more of like a yelling voice in my head, whereas when I took the medication they were a little bit more of a whisper, and so I was kind of able to not necessarily push them aside, but they did not trigger as much anxiety as they used to, because I was taking this medication that helped my anxiety too. So essentially it kind of helped decrease the intensity of the obsessions, as well as decrease my reaction to the thoughts, which just really helped me overcome them, see the other side, and also being on that other side really helps you in the moment. And I know talking to people who have been on that other side also is really helpful, which is why I make these videos. How was it weaning off of them? It was so easy. And I know it's not going to be easy for everybody. It really depends on how many milligrams of whatever you are taking, and also what you are taking, and also how slowly you taper off of it. The quicker you taper off, the more side effects you get. If you were to just stop taking it cold turkey, you would feel terrible because you would start going through the withdrawal symptoms. But the slower you do it, the easier it is to train your brain that you are like needing it less and less, so if that makes sense. Yeah, it really wasn't difficult. I think the biggest side effect I had was maybe once a week I would get a pretty bad headache, which might not even be from that. It might just be because I never drink water. So, hey, I am in the middle of editing this right now, and I wanted to update you guys on my medication tapering off, because I've been officially off my medication for 4 days now, which doesn't seem like very long, but trust me, it feels like a long time. I wanted to just quickly go over some of the like side effects I was feeling, because I don't want you guys to think that like literally nothing's gonna happen, because I was wrong. And but so yeah, I would say the last 2 or 3 days I've been very anxious, not necessarily about anything in particular, just a lot of sitting anxiety, as well as really random crying spells, which always seem to hit me in the evening, which is when I used to take my pill, so I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it. But yeah, I would say anxiety, some weird crying spells that usually last maybe 20 minutes, and then I feel fine. A lot of irritability, which is really common for me. Or irritability is like my number one like anxiety symptom that I get. Just a crabby bitch, I guess. And then I would say today and yesterday I've been feeling a little off balanced. I don't necessarily know what that's called, if it's like vertigo, because I'm not quite sure. But if I turn my head too fast, I get kind of dizzy. And if I just am a little more lightheaded and dizzy than normal, but it's not enough to where I'm afraid I'm going to pass out, because I do have that fear. So I like would freak out about that if I actually felt like it was a possibility, but it's not. It's just kind of feels like I was spinning on a, at a playground, and I got off really quickly. So it's tolerable, but I've kind of just been taking it easy. Yeah, so there's pretty much what's going on. I'm hoping by this time next week, a lot of these symptoms will kind of ease, because I've read that for the most part, it does look like when you're going off your medication. I'm not a doctor, so don't quote me. But hold on, now if you need help getting out. Come here, bud. There you go. Oh, big boy. Sorry. He's my child. But they do say that in the beginning of tapering off your medication, it's sometimes those depression and anxiety symptoms can come back, but that doesn't actually mean you're relapsing. It just kind of means your body's like getting used to having to do it on its own, if that makes sense. Yeah, I haven't had any big anxiety attacks about spiraling into a relapse or anything like that. Just kind of annoyed with being kind of dizzy all the time. But whatever, like nothing I can really do about it. So yeah, back to the video. Sorry. What do antidepressants actually do? Antidepressant that I took was Zoloft, and it is an SSRI. So what SSRIs do is they essentially increase the serotonin in your brain. And serotonin is one of the neurotransmitters, so like the little chemical messengers that send messages throughout your brain. A lot of people have this theory that taking antidepressants will make you feel happy, and that's why people call them like the happy pills. And a lot of people don't want to take antidepressants because they want to not rely on a medication to make them happy. They want to make their own happiness or serotonin or whatever. And so a lot of people are like, you're not really overcoming your mental illness, you're just taking something that's giving you false happiness. But actually, SSRIs, what they do, so they actually block the reabsorption of serotonin back into your brain, which eventually, in the long run, makes more serotonin available in your brain for it to use, if that makes sense. Basically, the serotonin that you are getting increased levels of is your own serotonin. It's the same serotonin that you would have if you weren't on medication. It just like basically makes it more available to you. So it's not false happiness, it's not false feelings, it's your own feelings just becoming more available. Think of it like gates. Your gates are like this when you're in a depression, and when you take antidepressants and you need more serotonin, it kind of just opens the gates, and so it lets those chemical transmitters like more available to your brain, which essentially like helps anxiety, depression, all of that. Did your mood fluctuate a lot in the beginning? I started mine 6 weeks ago, and I'm so up and down. I would say I was kind of up and down just because that's how my anxiety was. I didn't necessarily have a lot of like mood swings. There are so many other antidepressants that can work for you, and so if the first one you try makes things worse, try again. It's a process, and not everybody gets lucky on the first try. Just remember that. I think they helped. so much. So much. I would not be where I was today without them. Other than antidepressants, did you try any natural anxiety relievers? I would say natural remedies. I did take 5-HTP, which I got from my local like health food store. I don't know what that does. My stepmom told me to take it. I took that for about a week. I didn't really notice anything other than it actually making my anxiety worse, so that might just be like what my body was dealing with. It gave me a lot of that like sitting anxiety where, you know, the heart's racing and I'm just like, what the hell. I do still take melatonin on occasion when I have trouble falling asleep from anxiety related issues, but other than that, like natural anxiety things I did probably were just like different self-care things, you know, like making sure I got fresh air, exercising, all of that stuff I would consider like natural remedies. Do you feel like your personality itself changed or changed as well on them? No. I think what happened was I ended up feeling more like myself. I was really scared of this. This was a big fear of mine, that I was going to become a different person because I was going to be this like happy, carefree, but I realized that I just felt more like myself. And at the time when I was really anxious, I felt like myself. Like, it's like, how could you not feel like yourself? But in reality, I was definitely down. I wasn't doing the things that I used to do that I love to do. I don't know, but my personality did not change. I just felt more energy. I felt a little bit more willing to do things, you know, that I wanted to do. Did I get any side effects considering starting, but I'm worried I'll feel awful? For me, like I said, side effects were really minimal. Biggest ones were weight gain, which didn't really happen until a year later, which was pretty much after I was already feeling much better. They're mild side effects that are livable. Like, they're nothing that's gonna keep, it's not like the flu where you're gonna feel like you're coming down with the flu and you're sick in bed and you're like, oh, I feel terrible. It's more so just little things, a headache here and there, stomach kind of hurts. You probably won't feel horrible, and if you do start to feel like absolutely horrible, talk to your doctor, because you might be able to change medications for one that the side effects might not be as intense. Another side effect that I just realized that I had is I had a lot of chronic fatigue, and that didn't hit me until about like 6 months ago, 7 months ago, and it's still kind of lingering, but I pretty much have a hard time staying awake throughout the day. Like, I pretty much have to take a nap or else I get very grumpy. I'm like a toddler. If I don't take a nap around between 1 and 3 p.m., I am anxious and grumpy. So that might be a medication related thing. Maybe I'm not eating enough food that wakes me up or keeps me energized. So there's a lot going in there, but yeah. Okay, this is my last question. How did you recognize the effect? This is kind of an interesting question. I want to say it's definitely a gradual, like, you're not going to one day wake up and be like, wow, I feel great. It's just slowly but surely you're going to look back and go, whoa, I actually feel a lot better than I did 2 weeks ago. Or, whoa, I just realized I'm going on a run and I haven't done that in weeks. You know, it's just like little things like that where you just kind of realize that you're doing something you used to do that you haven't done in a while and you feel good about it. So I hope this video helps anybody who's thinking about taking antidepressants. If I could send one message after this video, it would just be to not be scared of them, because they are immensely helpful if you really need them. If you're suffering, there's no reason for you to continue suffering. You don't need to prove anything to yourself. You don't need to prove that you can do it on your own. There's nothing wrong with needing help. So I'm looking forward to shedding all of the weight that I gained. So I'm hoping to film another video about that. So give this video a thumbs up if you want like a weight story and all that kind of stuff. But thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more mental health updates and also kind of what I'm doing, because I'm gonna be like redoing this whole apartment. I'm so excited. But yeah, make sure to subscribe if you want to catch all of that. You can follow me on Instagram at Jazzmin Lauren or at ROCD and me. I don't really post on there as much, but you can reach out to me in DMs on either and I will respond. I respond to everybody unless you're creepy. Yeah, so give me a follow. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you want more. Subscribe, you know the drill, and I will see you guys in my next video.